Talking about social media, have you been watching what Steven Crowder has been getting up to recently?
You know, I've been friends with Steven for years, and whenever he texts me, I sort of think like,
what have you done now?
Oh no, what did he do now? What did he do this time? What's he in trouble for? And yes, I mean, they are gunning for him, I think, in a special way, because they can go after him on the jokes, and they can say the jokes were too far. And because he's so mainstream, I think he may be the most mainstream conservative that big tech has really gone after.
What do you think we've got to learn from his situation at the moment?
Well, I mean, the man has cojones of steel. He may be a complete lunatic. He's got such brass couillons, you know. I mean, we have seen this guy be waterboarded for a very long time. He's done all sorts of crazy things that most people would not do. And he's stood up to big tech, and he will not bow down. And I think the point that he and I were discussing this the other day. You go after Alex Jones. Oh, well, Alex Jones, he's just a kooky far-right guy. Turns out he actually appears to have been right about everything. The more we learn about the gay frogs, and I mean, well, Alex Jones, he's a fringe figure. Okay, you go after him. You go after Gavin McInnes. Gavin McInnes founded the Proud Boys, very funny comedian. But no, his jokes, they went too far. Okay, you got to get rid of Gavin McInnes. Now you're going after Steven Crowder. I mean, Steven Crowder, I think he has the largest online following of any conservative, basically. They're certainly in the top 3. If you go after and you take him out, they can take out any one of us. And I think that's really what this is about. And I give him a lot of credit. You know, I sometimes think if the big tech oligarchs have not gone after you at all, it means you're doing something wrong. It means that, you know, you're... when I think of the really squishy conservative types, you know, the ones who write for The Atlantic and The Washington Post and go on MSNBC or whatever, I realize they're actually worse than the left. Because the left is being honestly dishonest, right? The left is telling you what it believes and all the ghastly things it wants to do. But these guys exist to legitimize the leftist, the liberal establishment. Their role is to act as a court jester in the kingdom of liberalism. And so whenever you have an actual conservative raising actual questions that might seriously threaten the left, well, they can't tolerate that. You're not going to get your CNN invitation, and more likely they're going to try to boot you off like they're doing to Crowder.
The interesting thing with talking about Gavin McInnes and Alex Jones is that although those guys had huge, especially Alex, right, like a terrifyingly big audience, and he's still holding on to it, you know, he's broadcasting every day for ridiculous numbers of hours, even more than you guys. It certainly does feel like once someone is pulled out of the delivery mechanism of normal social media, the YouTubes, the Twitters, so on and so forth. Like Milo Yiannopoulos, where the fuck's he? You know, like what's Milo? I saw him throw a £500,000 ring into the coast of Hawaii a couple of weeks ago, and I was like, Milo, you've been drinking. Like that was, but I haven't seen him for ages. I'm like, oh, he's still got a YouTube account. Like, wow. And he's going through all of this other sort of stuff. But you'd have thought, traditionally, if Milo had gone through something as big as that, it would have been everywhere. But you really can, excommunicado, you can take someone out of the public zeitgeist very easily with this. And even if, you know, let's say that Steven's got every single one of his 4 million or whatever it is, how many subs he's got on YouTube, huge amount of subs. Let's say all of those are part of his private site, the Mug Club thing. That's now siloed. That's it.
Yes.
Shy of a very incentivized referral scheme, that's your audience. And you think, okay, is this it now? I get to affect these people and that's it? As everybody knows, the way that the delivery mechanisms on YouTube work, it's not just the subscribers that see the content. Even if you don't think about the people that view it, it's 10 or 20x the impressions. And even just seeing the content or seeing the tweet, even if you don't decide to engage with it, counts for something in terms of moving. So I think some political commentators, specifically on the right, because I think those guys tend to try and silo themselves or create these fallback plans a little bit more, as you guys have it as well, right? You know, just in case big tech decides to come for you. I think the idea is fantastic, and it's obviously the only one that you have. But I don't really think it's an acceptable or a successful... I don't think anyone should see being cancelled and still being able to exist and make a good living as a success, because you are now taken out of... The people that already subscribe to your stuff, they know and mostly agree with the talking points that you've got anyway. Yes, they need to be educated and entertained, but I don't think that should be classed as a victory if people get cancelled like that.
This is something so few people understand. The utility of YouTube is not primarily as a broadcast device. It's a fine broadcast system, and there are lots of broadcast systems, and that the utility of YouTube is the ability of discovery, right? The fact that new people then are going to find your stuff. So if you get booted out, and let's say you take your 1 million person audience with you, or your 2 million person audience with you. Okay, 2 million people out, and who knows how many of those will remain active. That's it. That's all you've got, and it will not grow, and it will actually shrink over time as people die and get interested in other things and go away. So yes, that's not a victory at all. And the censorship and the ostracism is real. I mean, Milo Yiannopoulos got truly canceled, truly unpersoned, and now he's out of the public discourse. So this again ties into the trap. Conservatives are reacting to cancel culture one of two ways. Either they'll say, Alex Jones really did say some things that are not good, and that's okay. I think it was fine, as long as it's just Alex, and it's totally fine, right? So those the squishes go along with it. And then the other way is we should never cancel anybody. But there is a third option here, which is we should cancel other people. And I just think that this middle idea, that we should never cancel anybody, has never existed anywhere. All societies have standards. All societies have taboos. Also, when you transgress those, they will ostracize you. And this has been true in the furthest annals of history all the way up until the present. The question is, what is the taboo? Who is going to be ostracized? In the 1940s and 50s, we prosecuted and ostracized many communists. This was colloquially known as McCarthyism, but it wasn't just McCarthy. I mean, he was one anti-communist senator, but there was the House Committee on American Activities. There was the Hollywood blacklist. These were largely distinct institutions, and what it meant was if you were advocating the overthrow of the United States government, the way of life, if you were actively supporting the Communist Party, which is a front for the Soviet Union, then you were out. You were canceled. And I think that's a great thing. The difference is that in the 1950s, you were canceled if you were a communist. And today, you are canceled if you are not a communist. And if conservatives understand this, and we say, ostracizing people who are contrary to our understanding of the world and our way of life, that's a fine thing. What the left will tell us and the squishes will tell us is, well, now you're no different than the left. But we are. It actually is a different thing to cancel communists as it is to cancel anti-communists. And it's a different thing to wave the hammer and sickle than it is to wave the American flag. And I just think that, yes, politics involves form. It involves certain, broad abstractions. But it also involves substance and particulars. What are you being canceled for?
That's not a very scalable solution, is it? It means that each individual broad range, each region of cancellations needs to be looked at upon its own merits. That's going to be much more effortful. That's going to be a challenge.
Well, it requires some kind of conservative unity. So right now, with the current cancel culture, which is exclusively leftist, we know the criteria. It's if you say anything that can in any way be disingenuously twisted and misinterpreted to be racist, sexist, homophobic, transphobic, whatever, the list goes on and on. If you in any way contradict the leftist orthodoxies, you can be canceled. And if they just don't like the cut of your jib and you say I think of my Daily Wire colleague, Gina Carano, who tweeted out something that was anti-Nazi, and the left interpreted it, completely flipped it on its head and said it was pro-Nazi or something, and that therefore, you could get rid of her. It's just because they didn't like her because she was conservative. So yes, the left is unified, and the right is not. Paul Ryan, former Speaker of the House, who seems like a perfectly amiable fellow, is very much an economics-focused conservative, and he really doesn't seem to care very much about cultural issues. And he just gave a speech the other day, and he said, we got to stop talking about how they're trying to trans the kids, and we got to stop talking about all these cultural things, which are just distractions. We've got to talk about the only important conservative issue, namely cutting taxes a little bit more, once again. And I thought, pal, you obviously don't know what time it is here, but that we have to deal with that problem. The only thing that has united the right since the fall of the Berlin Wall has been cutting taxes. Okay, you can't agree on anything else. And so if you can't agree on anything else, then you're absolutely right. You're not going to be able to enforce a set of standards. So I'm hoping now, I think there is some hope. You're seeing on the right the ascendancy of much more traditional, serious conservatives. I'm thinking of guys like Sohrab Ahmari at the New York Post, who just wrote The Unbroken Thread. It's a very good book on this topic. Guys like Adrian Vermeule, Harvard law professor, really good on that topic. Yoram Hazony, the writer of Virtue of Nationalism, Israeli philosopher, is really good. Patrick Deneen, Why Liberalism Failed. I mean, this actually has really been emerging, this call for a substantive conservative vision. And so I hope that we can get it, but are we there now? Absolutely not.
Thank you very much for tuning in. If you enjoyed that, then press here for the full, unedited episode. And don't forget to subscribe. It makes me very happy indeed. Peace.